Got back, went to bed, woke up, my whole face had dropped. Looked at my mum, she's busted out crying. She's like, he's had a stroke in his sleep.
I have the pleasure of welcoming
John J. Hedges. Here's the undefeated John
Racing for impact, real tricky, quick to flip a pretty penny to a thick stack, quick stat. Think fast and I talk real.
Where did it all start?
I wanted to do something different, do you know what I mean? I wanted to actually dedicate myself to it and just show that I'm not here for the short term. I want to be around top people.
It must be a big thing, trust in that kind of industry, because a lot of people, I imagine, will use you to leverage their profile, get in certain doors.
I didn't think I was being used, but that's what I was. I was used as an advertisement tool. It was a lot. I took a lot of backlash from it. Obviously, being on Sky, everyone wants you to lose anyway because you're this made to be cocky kid, but I wasn't. Rung me up after. He could have dropped me. For that sort of thing there, I'd always be loyal because he gave me a shot when no one else did. I sat there, I was crying my eyes out just thinking, just give me one pro debut, give me a ring walk, that's all I want. And it just puts things in perspective as quick as you got things good, it can go like that.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I have the pleasure of welcoming John Hedges, Matchroom, Eddie Hearn's youngest ever signing, pro boxer. But before we get into this podcast, I'd like to say a big thank you to Casita Properties for sponsoring us. They are the UK leading property company when it comes to off-market, discreet buy-to-let sales. All the links will be in the description below. John Hedges, youngest signing for Matchroom Boxing.
Yeah, like as you said there, I was the first one to sign with Eddie at such a young age. We started discussions at 17 years old, which was to even turn pro was unheard of. And then it kind of went from there. For legal reasons, we had to wait till I was 18, my 18th birthday, announced my signing with Eddie on my 18th birthday, and it all went from there.
So you must be half decent at boxing.
I'd like to think so.
So, I mean, firstly, congratulations. That's awesome. We were talking about Eddie Hearn, no context, all that stuff, the behind the scenes of boxing. I love boxing. I used to box at a young age. I was amateur, never, not as far as you, but love boxing as a whole. So let's talk a little bit about boxing, the whole Matchroom experience. I want to tap into that first. I mean, that must be an absolute buzz.
Yeah, like if you growing up around boxing, the dream is to sign with a top promoter. In my opinion, the best promoter there is Eddie Hearn. Yeah. Not just UK, I believe globally. He's the king of boxing. So when I had the opportunity to sign with Eddie, it was like, I don't need to see no other offers. I had a few different offers. Had one from Frank Warren at the time as well, but without putting Frank down because you never know. But Eddie was my man. So as soon as the offer come in, I was like, told my management team, let's get it signed. I was only 18, so it was all a bit overwhelming because obviously COVID hit at the same time. I wasn't actually in the gym when I was doing the negotiations, so I put on a little weight. But I could always talk, and I had a great amateur background. My amateur background was 44 fights, 40 wins. So in the amateur scene, I cleared up. I boxed for England since 12 years old, boxed for GB and covered everything in amateur. So that's what gave me the pedestal as such to sign with Eddie. But yeah, when you actually get the text message come through, you're a bit like, phew.
Yeah. Oh, well, we're out celebrating tonight.
Yeah, literally that. And then it kind of reality hit. It was like, with COVID, we can't train, and I might have just landed myself a deal with Eddie Hearn. So a little bit of anxiety and everything like that, but you just went with it.
Oh, mate, it's so exciting. And look, a lot of people watch Eddie Hearn, and so it's not even like, it's Matchroom, which is amazing. But also, I think Eddie Hearn's built up such a good brand. And I think at one point, I mean, I certainly remember, like we were talking about watching Coogan in the early days, but Eddie Hearn at one point was quite Marmite. At one point, and 100%. Rubs people up the wrong way, but now I think he's won the people over. And look, if I was a pro boxer, I'd want to be signed by Matchroom because I can say this. I'm going to say it because I know you can't. But when I do look at, I've stayed close to boxing, but when I look at promoters, I've always found Frank Warren's a little bit dated now. Like you look at his boxers, and they're just not popping. Like the brand and the marketing isn't there. And, as a boxer, I imagine you want the whole package. You don't just want to be a great boxer. You want to be someone that people know about, not just
you
some
want to be
guy.
The household name.
Yeah, exactly. So massive congrats on signing for Matchroom, especially as the youngest signing. Where did it all start?
It all started, so dad was a fighter, brother was a fighter. I would hate to say it, but kind of forced into fighting, if you know what I mean. Like, so obviously my dad come from a boxing background. We're travellers. We are a travelling family. So even in that sense, you're brought up to fight, sort of thing, and it's just how you are. All your family did, your cousins did, and it's not people say it's born into you. It kind of is, because if I went and played football, I'd just be looked at as weird. No one in my family done it. No one I even knew was doing it. So it's like, why aren't you fighting? And he's that kind of thing. My brother done well, but he was never he boxed for West Ham Boxing Club, and then Repton Boxing Club over in Bethnal Green. My brother was a good fighter, but he was never at the level where he could ever do it for a job. My brother could literally have a fight. He had no boxing skill in that sense, and not putting him down, but he had loads of heart, and he just used to get beat by a better boxer. So then when it come to me, it was like, I want to do what my brother didn't do. I want to show that I can fight, but I want to show that I can make a living out of this, because as a lot of people know, travelling boxers, as a kid, there's loads of us. There's hundreds of us. And then we all get married young, and you settle down. You got a family at 18, and before you know it, you can't box because you need to go work. But I wanted to do something different. Do you know what I mean? I wanted to actually dedicate myself to it and just show that I'm not here for the short term, and I want to make a living. And I think that's why having that drive and seeing so many people around me be like, honestly, such good fighters from 12 to 14, and having the best people in Europe go, God, that kid's unreal, to then being married by 16 and packing up and losing it all. I didn't want to do that. And that was my main thing. So I stuck to it. I moved to Repton Boxing Club at 12 years old. So I was an Essex boy boxing in London from a very young age. And I think that's what my dad believed would man me up. Being in a London gym, it's a little bit more rougher than what I'm used to. It's teaching you discipline in the sense that these boys have got troubled childhoods. Like, they don't care in that ring. It was always a bit on a knife edge when you was in there. So I was glad to be took out of my comfort zone, and I think that made me the fighter I am today.
Yeah, I mean, how did you find it? Because I can only imagine then, you know, you're talking about this whole process of, you know, the travelling background where you got to settle down, everything like that, and almost cut what could be a great career short. So how did you break that mould? Was it a case of you were just shining early and we were like, you know, people around you were like, well, we've got to let you spread your wings, or were you pushing back and saying, no, hang on a minute, I've got something here?
Yeah, it was a bit like that. I was always told like I had a old head on young shoulders, and even growing up, it was always, I was happy to go to school. I wasn't one of them kids who was like, I don't want to go to school, I want to go work. I was happy to do my own thing. I weren't the so-called stereotypical traveller. I was happy to go to school, do my education. I always thought I was going to be an office worker or something like that. I wanted to wear a suit, do you know what I mean? And then when it got into the boxing, I think I just had that much more discipline. I always had a life plan that I don't care what I do, but I want to be successful. Whether it be boxing, whether it be business, I want to be successful. And then that sort of drive kept me narrow-headed, whereas I didn't win all the titles. When I first was an amateur boxer, a lot of boys a lot better than me, but they were packing up and I stayed to it. And then everything kind of clicked into place.
It's one of those things, you know, in like sport. I mean, I played high level football when I was younger, up until sort of, you know, 16 years old, really high level for a centre of excellence. And even now, when I walk along in the park, you can see a sharp player. Like, you can just notice it, but that player won't necessarily know how sharp they are. But, you know, when you're watching like a 5-6-year-old and they're just outplaying everyone else, they don't know it. And it's the same for boxing, isn't it? Like, you know, my little boy's 9 now, but he's been boxing for a couple of years, and he's sharp. But then even the kids that are the same age as him and younger, they're sharper.
Yeah,
and you can see it.
It's that little shine.
Yeah, and it's like you really want to promote it, because it's like there's something good there that could be amazing. And I've watched a few of your fights. You got, you know, I'm not even going to sit here and make out like I'm your coach, but I can tell you're a boxer.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Good boxing skills, like good fundamentals. So yeah, I can only imagine from that background, so many people could have been good boxers from a fighting background, but
there's so many. Like you just said there, like growing up, the Irish travellers, especially when they're young, they're men before us. Like at 12, I'm a kid. I'm a fat kid with love handles. I'm this little chubby boy. They're not. They're men child. Do you know what I mean? And they would tear through anything. They was fighting Russians at like 12 and they're beating them. And then they get to 16. You're like, this kid's gonna go pro surely. No, he goes, gets married. Yeah, and he's finished. All that bit of talent.
He's doing a patio.
Yeah, he's doing a patio. Exactly that. And then you become the stereotypical one. And it was like, what is the sense? Like travellers get tarnished with a name, and I'm not gonna lie, like half of us deserve it, because a lot of people do bad things they shouldn't do, but it's not all the same. And that sort of thing there, you've got the talent, just use your bit of head, you've got a bit up there to get that talent, like use a bit of savvy and go get a deal with a promoter. But then it's the same I won't be told what to do. Well, then that's why you haven't made it. You've got to sometimes, like as you know, with anything, you've got to say the right things to the right people, and sometimes you've got to do a bit of arse licking in the sense of that, just to get in that door. And then when you're in, you can make your name.
to make strides, you've got to break the mold. Like you have to go against the grain. If anyone's going to do anything great, anything different, anything worth doing, it's hard. And you've got to break these traditional molds. And I'm a big believer in that. You've just done that. So I think continue on that route, because I don't think you would have landed the Matchroom. Well, you wouldn't have landed the Matchroom sponsorship had you have not continued. So let's talk a little bit about opportunity. So sponsored by Matchroom, I can only imagine that your journey now, you're going to start getting other deals coming through the door. What does that look like in terms of behind the scenes? For people looking on the outside, all we see is the boxer, the logos on the t-shirt, stuff like that. How does it all integrate, and how does it work?
So everything I do really goes through my management, which is SJM Boxing. So they look after me personally, and then Eddie's my promoter. So if I ever whenever my fights are, they're always on Eddie Hearn's platform, being Matchroom Boxing, live on DAZN. It's a great platform. DAZN, at the time, I used to think Sky was the best thing ever. DAZN triple the views, so it's like, it's crazy. It's only that in England we all believe in Sky, obviously, because we see it all the time, but in America and globally, DAZN's the biggest platform. So we signed with DAZN. I renewed my contract this year for another 8 fights, which to me was repaying Eddie Hearn a favour, because when I first turned pro, I had my debut at 18 and I had a very hard fight. It was a fight which probably the nerves got the better of me. I won, but it was very controversial and it was a very close fight, and it was a lot. I took a lot of backlash from it. Obviously, being on Sky, everyone wants you to lose anyway because you're this made to be cocky kid, but I wasn't. But I had to do what the camera wanted me to do, and I took a lot of stick. And then Eddie rung me up after. He could have dropped me from that performance. I boxed terrible. I got the win, but boxed terrible. And his first thing he's saying, he apologised to me. He was like, "You had the wrong opponent. You had this." And for that sort of thing there, I'd always be loyal, because he gave me a shot when no one else did, and it just happened to be that I believe he's the best as well. Yeah. So I re-signed a contract for 8 fights. And my first of that 8 fights is October the 29th, Wembley Arena. And that's the start of it, yeah.
Big opportunity ahead.
Big opportunity on Katie Taylor's undercard. It'd be good.
I reckon there's some tickets here, Paul. If this goes well. But no, massive opportunity. Is it all for the camera? You know, like a lot of people will always say, you know, a lot of the big fights, like especially if we look at like Conor and Chris coming up, you can tell there's rivalry, and you can tell like what you see on the camera is genuine. But you know, is it pushed far more than we think? You know, is it that marketing? Because you look at it and you think, well, there is a big conflict here. Like it's going to be a big one, but there's marketing behind everything, isn't there?
110%. Like I've been in, I wouldn't say the fighters' names, but I've been in occasions where maybe pay-per-view hasn't done as well as it should have. And listen, get a little whisper in the ear, chuck that bottle of water over his head, or flip that table while you're at it. And the thing is, by flipping that table, got another 4 million views and probably another 100,000 pay-per-view sales. So things like that have to be done. And as you understand, marketing's so important. But yeah, in boxing, there is a general hate with certain people. However, it is exaggerated as well. Yeah. But at the end of the day, after the fight, they'll be best mates. They've earned loads of money from each other, and they'll probably run it back and earn the exact amount of money again, double it.
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, you're all in the industry to win. Like everyone, you know, I can't imagine that people seriously, you know, want to damage someone for life. You know, like everyone wants to come out of it and go back to their families. Opportunity wise, so like beyond the boxing, obviously you've got this really exciting career ahead of you. What other things are you interested in? You know, like have you got aspirations to sort of really capitalise on this? Because from my eyes, or you know, from where I'm sitting from the outside in, is like it's a platform that you could just totally go into different areas after boxing or even during. Have you got sort of ideas and aspirations?
Yeah, so like my whole thing is, I always have been, I want to be around top people, and like you just said there, being on Matchroom, it's a top platform. You're mixing with big names every day, and you sometimes take you for granted. Like when I first signed, being around Eddie, it was like, oh my god, I'm with Eddie Hearn today. But now it's worn off the novelty as such, because he's now my promoter and we're together all the time, sort of thing. But the plan is to eventually, I'd love to own my own gym and have a few about. Do you know what I mean? And having the nickname the Gentleman's Gym, it works. So I've always had that. We've got containers which are made into a gym in Bishop Stortford near my local, and that is the first Gentleman's Gym. It's on a cheap standard and it's a cheap base at the moment, but it's a starting point. And I do a lot of PTs down there, and there is Monday, Wednesday, Friday gym sessions, and it's getting about 30 people in a session. So it's moving all right, but eventually, as I develop into a better fighter and get my name out there more, I want it to be big time.
Yeah, I love hearing that because, like, you know, we've spoken about it before, but you get like footballers who earn big packets, and it's just the same with schooling. Like, there's no information around, okay, look, you're going into a career that you could earn a shit ton of money, but there's also something set up here that we can teach you about all the finances. You know, do you want to go into business? Do you know how to invest and stuff like that? Because you're going to be going through this stage of being able to bring in these big packets, and it's like reinvesting that in a smart way is gonna set you up. So I think what you're doing, that's awesome. And
you got to have something. I think you take an interest in as well to keep yourself like. If you're switching off and you're not focused on the end goal, obviously you're gonna lose yourself. But like you just said there, I think being in the right circle, and I want to learn. I'm very open to learning. Like I don't know much about business to what I need to know. So it's like being around top people and things like that. It's going to open my knowledge.
Oh, it's going to elevate you. Honestly, one of the biggest things for me and my career and my journey and to where I am now, you know, small, medium, big successes has all come down to the people that I've been around. 110%. It's your network. Your network will earn you big money. And what I would say as well is, like, when we look at things like boxers, football players, is they would turn around and say, well, this is my bread and butter. And the other thing with that is, now that you've got this opportunity, you call it the bread and butter. However, just like other things like influencers and people like this, it can be taken away in a heartbeat. You can lose your account. You could have a major injury.
Yep.
I mean, I remember when George Groves popped his shoulder, and I thought, oh, he's fucked.
That's him done.
And that was him done. And he was one of my favourite fighters, George. And I just thought, he's never going to be the same. So it's like having that counter plan, like, okay, you know, I'm earning this, I'm doing this, but what am I building in the background that's going to serve me once this goes kaput? Do you ever worry about that sort of injury?
100%. So I actually it turned out not to be as bad, but I had a massive injury before I turned pro. I boxed internationally in Germany. I'd done a 2-day boxing tournament for Team England. I went out there, I won, and I come back, I'd done a dramatic weight cut. I went from 74 kg down to 66 in about the space of like probably under 2 weeks, like 12 days. And I was tall, and I'm a kid, so I didn't actually have a lot to lose. So to do that weight cut consistently over the 2 days and then fight as well and have hard fights, I won them, but it was hard. It took a drainage on my body, and I remember flying home and I didn't tell no one. I didn't feel right. Like, I started having like little numb feeling in my face, a little bit of a pain in my head. But I thought, it's flying, all that. Got back, went to bed, woke up, my whole face had dropped. It looked like I had a stroke. So my mouth here went down to there, my eye dropped. It was like that for about 6 weeks, and I honestly thought I had a stroke though. So woke up in the morning, run downstairs, looked at my mum, she's busted out crying. She's like, he's had a stroke in his sleep. I didn't feel fine. And you know, when you've not told no one, in my head I was like, this is a stroke, you know, like I felt this coming on. Something. Yeah, I should have said something. So rushed us to the hospital, trainee nurses on at the time. Oh, we're sorry to tell you, he's had a bleed on the brain. Well, that for any fighter, man, that's game over. You don't step in the ring again when you have a bleed. So I was sitting there. I've not made my pro debut. I'm 16 years old. I'm sitting there, and do you know what done me? Yeah, I was actually all right. I don't know. It didn't hit me. My mum and dad was obviously devastated. We were hoping for big things. The trainee nurse come out ready to shave my head, and mate, that done me. I see, and I thought it got to cut my head open here like that. I don't know a lot about surgery, but if your head's getting cut, that's serious. And it just literally a godsend that another nurse come in a doctor to come in and double check the procedure. And it was, I think, called Bell's palsy. Don't know if you heard it. It's like a virus which can it takes hold of your muscles.
Justin Bieber had, wasn't it?
Yeah. Did Justin Bieber have it? Yeah. So I know the world's strongest man, Phil Bjornsson, he's got it, and he's permanently left with a wonky face.
Oh yeah.
So when they said it's Bell's palsy, they was like, that will get better. So it was a godsend. But in that that split second of time, mate, it was over.
Yeah.
I could only dream of having a pro debut. Yeah. Never mind being a world champion and things like this. It was just, I sat there, I was crying my eyes out, just thinking, just give me one pro debut, give me a ring walk. That's all I want.
Yeah.
And it just puts things in perspective. As quick as you got things good, it can go like that.
Oh, and you don't, I think, depending on the age that you are, I mean, I won't go into it too much, but when I was 12, I ended up getting something called osteomyelitis. which basically is like a bone marrow eating bacterial infection. And literally I had holes riddled in my hip bone, and literally I was told that I was about 2 weeks away from having my entire left leg removed because it was so bad.
And you was doing your
going
football?
down. And I was doing,
yeah.
and I was like, it was semi-pro, like I had a scholarship and, you know, and everything like this. And I used to leave school twice a week and stuff, you know. And I remember just thinking, I mean, it was worse for my parents because I had like literally lines from here to my heart, one on that side, injections.
Yeah,
like
they're
every few
panicking.
hours.
That's it, son.
Yeah, it was, and that was like a real, oh my God, like we are not invincible.
Yeah.
So things like that.
It's a wake-up call.
It forces you to make plans. And this is, you know, we talk a lot about entrepreneurship in, you know, like business, just making something for yourself whilst you can, because at any point the old knock on the door can come. And you've seen it in boxing, and that's, you know, that's why I brought it up, because it could be your last fight.
You never know.
Could be.
The minute you step into that ring, sounds cliche and it sounds cringe sometimes because you hear people say it, but you're putting your life at risk. Someone's hitting you in the head. Like, don't matter how they hit you, could be wrong one day. You could be a little bit dehydrated. It's game over. And I think when you put it in perspective, that could be game over.
Yeah.
Every time you step in the ring, I take it for granted, and a lot of people do, but every time you step in that ring, you should think, am I sorted on the outside first? Like, have I got a plan B? Because a lot of fighters don't. I'd like to think I've got good people around me that I would have a plan B, and I'd have something put in place straight away, but you never know. It's always good to think ahead.
It is. Two things I want to bring up with you. So one, I was going to say, I just got to mention this. I can't remember what it was, but it was during lockdown, so there was no real audience, so you could hear the slap of the punch. But I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to get punched by Conor Ben. I'll tell you what, I hear his.
I was on that undercard, Ben versus Vargas.
Yeah, that's it, Vargas. They
were
clapping those noises. I think that we heard those in Romania and Kazakhstan and all kinds of places. Like, that was brutal. So yeah, absolutely. Like plan B, C, D, and E and F. Trust. It must be, in anything in life, trust is obviously up there. Business, you know, when money's involved, I said it earlier, if someone will steal £1, they'll steal £1 million to get rid early. It must be a big thing, trust, in that kind of industry, because a lot of people, I imagine, will use you to leverage their profile, get in certain doors. How do you feel about trust sort of going into the industry? Who's genuine, who's not?
Exactly what you just said there. Like, there's a lot of people who fish about, who make out they're there for your best interest, but I'm not stupid in the fact that I know not many people will give something and not want something back, unless they're family or unless they're your best friend. And as much as even Eddie himself, he's a businessman. I might be promoted by him, but only way I earn money is if I'm earning him money, and that's the vicious circle of life, right? And I suppose the quicker you accept that you don't have a chip on your shoulder, but you're always a bit wary then, and you stay a little bit more cautious that, hold on, I'm giving you this. Do I get anything in return? Because when I first turned pro, I was so grateful to be with Eddie Hearn and be the youngest ever signing. I'd do anything for free. I'm with him, I'm living the dream in my head. But then I started realising you've got to understand your worth. Mm-hmm. And being around top fighters, like in our gym, we've got world champions, we've got Ebony Bridges and things like that. And she was like, you're worth more than that. Like, tell them you should be having a bit of a wage for doing things like this. And when I started understanding that, then you get the respect for trust. You start realising that, oh, hold on a minute, I didn't think I was being used, but that's what I was. I was used as an advertisement tool. And I think you've got to make the mistakes, you've got to make the slip-ups, and then when they're made, you know where you stand. Yeah,
I think one thing you'll learn, because how old are you now? 20. So one thing you definitely, like, as you go through the years, like I'm sitting here 30 years old, literally just turned 30. You know, we've spoken about this, me and Paul as well, but you learn to smell the bullshit. Like, you can smell bullshit from a mile away now. Yeah. And you can see someone who's trying to use it for their platform, they're trying to gain access, there's some form of an agenda. And one thing that I've learned from people who have made a lot of money but have come from very humble backgrounds and are typically family people, they're the ones that normally you can have a little bit of a safeguard with. Yeah. The people that are on that real steep incline on their journey still, they've got a long way to go. So you're either helping them up the hill or you're going to be holding them back. And what I will say, one thing that I've learned from business and any kind of financials that are involved, whether it's your wife or whether it's your best friend or whether it's your mum, maybe not your mum, you treat it as a business transaction. And after that transaction's done, then you're back to normal relationships. But yeah, my God, you're going to go through that process of like just smelling the bullshit. Yeah, like, it happens. I'm sure you're already picking up some sense from some people.
Sponsorship as much as anything. Like you get some sponsors and they text you out and you can't ever turn down an option because you never know that one what you think is bullshit might be right. So I'll answer every one of them, and then I realise, if you just let me come watch this fight, there'll be X amount, 15 grand for you. Sorted them tickets. Yep. The business liquidated, and then you realise how many times can that actually happen? Do you know what I mean? And like you just said there, you smell it. I think I started looking about now, and you do see it beforehand. You see what they got behind them, and you think you haven't got the money to sponsor it. Not being rudely, but that's how I look at the business. You could, if you had that sort of money, you would spend it doing something else. So and I started to understand it a little bit. But like you say, I've got a lot of years yet, and
well, it will come in time. And like I did an article, a blog on my LinkedIn a long time ago, and it was called "How to Spot a Waffler." And it's almost like you have a self checklist. So like when people get in touch with me, or they'll talk about certain things, especially around sort of like my bread and butter stuff, I've only got to ask them a couple of questions, and on their answers, I know whether it's worth entertaining or not. And I'm sure you get it all the time, where you get those people that say, do you want to meet up for a coffee? And you'll, not being rude, but you turn around and say, why? Like, why do you want to meet?
What am I getting out of it?
What's the synergy? What's the collaboration? And it's not all about give, take. Sometimes some people just do give.
There is. They're genuine. There's not many.
There's far and few. But again, like smelling the whole bullshit. With the sponsorship and stuff like that, just for an interest, because I know people are going to love it. Do you tend to do you negotiate a lot of your stuff, or is it all management? Because obviously you're going to want, if you're doing all this sort of sponsorship branding stuff, it's got to obviously reward you. Do you get involved in the negotiations much, or is that with your team?
Personally, if I can, I'd rather do the sponsorship all myself, only because depending on the person, if they're spending their hard-earned money on me and I'm their advertisement tool, then I think I can repay other people in different ways. Like, for example, I've got a sponsor, his son is obsessed with boxing. So although I'm advertising his dad's business and that's helping his dad out, I can help his son out. Look, come down the gym with me, come meet the boxers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, in my head, I think that's something what a management can't do for you. Do you know what I mean? He's a local boy. I say, bring your son up. Come on, get a photo, get a few autographs, and that's made that boy's day.
Yeah.
Whereas if my management's dealing with it, they can't have that personal view because they don't know how I'm going to take it. So I think personally, if I can do it on my own, it is so much better because you can help different people out. There can be different deals for different people, like I say, and all you ask is that if they're fair with you, you treat them fair.
Yeah.
And then you don't take each other for idiots.
I think sometimes, because I've dealt with a lot of management. I've dealt with a lot of management companies, like in talks with guests or like meeting them or bringing them along to events and stuff like this. Some management companies are great. Like, can't fault them. I've got some great relationships with some PR companies, but other ones, it's weird because you can speak to the individual first and then they'll go, just get in contact with my management company. You get in contact, they're like, no, don't work for us.
Yeah.
We've had, right, we won't say the individuals, but these podcasts normally last around 30 to 35 minutes, like recording time, makes for good content. And then we've literally had people say, well, we want 20 grand. Like for half hour. Like legit, 20 grand.
This is what I mean.
Like it's non-profit.
Yeah.
Like no one's earning money here. Like it's non-profit.
Yeah.
It's 20 grand, like literally our biggest one we actually had, we need to pay 20 grand. Well, no, that's insane.
Yeah. And where's that sort of funding coming from? Do you know what I mean? It's like, and that's exactly what I mean. And if it's the person itself, they might think, well, you know what, I actually quite like these podcasts. I don't mind going on it for nothing. Do you know what I mean? But if they don't get that opportunity to see it first, so I always say to people, only ones I'm not sure on is there might be certain businesses where they do something which I'm not sure if it looks good me advertising. So now I go, you know what, get in contact with my management. If they say okay, don't ask them when I'm free, just text me and I'll tell you when I'm free. And then I think that's the best way. Don't get me wrong, as you get bigger, I can imagine your phone don't stop ringing and you got things here, there and everywhere. But at the moment, I'm happy to do it on my own. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's that like human element. You grow quick through other people.
Exactly.
Like we always try and sort of deal with a lot of people. If we can, like we've got some meetings set up and like we always try and go, don't we? And just sit down and actually talk. And we won't say too much, but we're going to be dealing with one of the UK's one of the most richest men. Like insane in terms of other things that we're doing, and it's insane. But there's that human element behind that. That only happened because there was no automation process to go through. It was on a human element where people can listen to what we're saying and hear us, and then go, oh, okay. Oh, actually. Yeah. Oh, okay, that makes sense. You know. So yeah, always keep that human element because like you'll still grow, and it's a people's game, isn't it?
That's exactly.
Like you've got to win the people.
You don't want to talk
over.
to a robot. You want to talk to the person itself and say, listen, coming down? You interested, or do you want to do something together? Can we make something happen? You want to see the enthusiasm and you want it to pop, don't you? And if you get that spark, then it happens.
I think that's where, just staying on boxing, sort of as we do come to a close, I think that's what happened with AJ. Like, we spoke about this. I think, I don't expect you to sort of come back with an answer on this, but from our perspective, like looking in, is that I just felt like he got lost in too much marketing, and like you lost the person of AJ, and then eventually all this pressure and persona of trying to be someone. Like, I can only imagine in front of millions and millions of people trying to keep up this persona of I'm the people's champ, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. One day you just go, I can't fucking deal with it. And then you see a different side to that person that might just be, do you know, Brad said it earlier. I really like this. Our first guest, he went through like suicidal thoughts, deep depression, like involving drugs and all this stuff. He said he's a life coach now, and he tries to sort of really pick people up who are in dark times. And he said, these people that a guy will pull out pull out of a road, and they just sort of cut in, and you have to slam on your brakes, and you get some people fucking like this. How do you know that person's not rushing to his mum who's literally in hospital, who's going to literally lose their life? You don't know the
story, do you?
And these people that just infill with rage like instantly, and it's like, you kind of just got to go slow the fuck down and just
we're all
chill.
humans, like you just said. We are all human. We all got a bad day. We all got a good day. Like,
this is like empathy.
Yeah.
There's not many businesses, old school businesses that showed empathy. A worker comes in, why are you slacking? Well, no, you haven't made enough calls today. I've just lost my mum.
Yeah.
There's no empathy in corporate. Corporate doesn't go hand in hand with empathy, and that's what needs to change. And I suppose, keeping that with like as you grow and stuff like that is massive.
Yeah, like you said there, there's no, everything's textbook. Why isn't it not? This is the real world. Do you know what I mean? Like this is the real world. Today I've had a shit day. I don't need this today, but I'll give you a double tomorrow. I'll work twice as hard tomorrow.
Yeah.
You can't do that in a normal job. I don't believe anyway, because they're like, well, no, the book says you got to do 8 till 4.
Yeah.
Well, I'm telling you that the book needs to be screwed up, and I'll come in here at 11 and I'll work till 12 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
And I'll make up for it. And it's like
the numbers didn't add up. Yeah, but you've taken away what I'm saying to you.
Yeah.
Do you know, my old dear, bless her, she was at her job and she's got all this pressure on her job and like private medical secretary and all this stuff. She's getting thrown all this work. And she said they won't listen to the people on the ground who do the work.
No.
And I felt that when I was when I was employed. They'll never listen. They'll just look at numbers, and it's like
you're just another worker.
It's just another worker. And like you said, good days, bad days. As we sort of come to a close, I've loved this, by the way. Through some of your bad days, how do you pick yourself back up? Like, what do you do if you're having a real shit day and you're thinking, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing all this for. I'm sick of it. I don't want to talk to anyone. What do you do to stay in a good mindset to reset yourself and go again?
Do you know what I think it is more than anything? There's always like, this sounds so cringy now, but there's a quote we'll always go back to. Always remember the days you dreamed of the things you have now. And I think as bad as my worst day can be now, mate, when I was younger, this was my dream to be in a position. The problems I might get now is a problem I used to dream of having. Like, I've got to take 12 calls today with my management. It's a hassle. And I'm having a real down day. I've sparred bad. So that's put me bad mood. Then my weight's bad. And then I've got all this. But you know what? I'm a pro boxer. I'm signed by Matchroom. I think it's just keeping yourself remembering that. And then you get that boost. Do you know what I mean? That gives you that. Yeah, all right, I'm back. Do you know what I mean?
Bit of self-reflection.
Yeah, because it's easy to get wrapped up in it. Like, I'm always sparring 30-year-old men. I'm 28-year-olds. I've not long been out of school. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I'm sparring really good. Next time I might get a bit of an iron in. But it's that I look at myself as a man. Like I'm a 28-year-old, like I'm a 25-year-old, whatever it is. And I come out, I beat myself up. I'm like, oh man, what have I done that for? I'm meant to be this. But now I think, I'm 20-year-old. Like, take a bit of pressure off myself and think I'm doing all right. Long as I'm in this position when I'm 25, 26, I'm happy.
Oh, mate, 20 years old. I mean, we're both of us are sitting here thinking, honestly, fuck, if you play, not even like your boxing career. Like I say this with like total honesty. If you're smart, even if you weren't in boxing, if you're just money smart, you could seriously be a seriously wealthy person by 30. Like, I seriously mean that.
This, and you just got to be driven from the start. You can't. Yeah, exactly. You got to have that path, haven't you? And I'm the same. That's how I think you got to think. And the bad days, you just got to make sure the good days are twice as good as the bad.
Keep the horse blinkers on and ignore the noise. And if you're smart with money, you're smart with business. I would say, I was on the phone as we sort of finish up. I was on the phone to a friend who, like I said, runs this very successful agency for influencers in the UK. And he said, stay close to negotiations. Like, don't, you have a management team.
Yep.
But as a business, become a business person. Don't remain the sports person. Yeah. Like, be the sports person, but be the business person.
Yeah, have an eye on what's going on.
Yeah, because you need to mould your future. And if you're being paid a certain amount, had you been in negotiations and said, actually, do you know what? It's like you don't ever accept the first sponsorship.
Exactly.
So, mate, I wish you all the best. Like, I'm really excited. I'm so pleased that you came on the podcast, mate, because first boxer on, love boxing myself. So it was good to merge the two.
Yeah. And business, bit of boxing.
And blend it in. So, but look, where can people follow you? How can they watch your fights? Just a little bit. Where can people land on you?
I box live on DAZN. So DAZN do their own subscriptions now. But I'm sometimes on Before the Bell on YouTube. So I just put my name in, John Hedges. It'll come straight up. Instagram's John Hedges 1. Twitter, John Hedges _. And yeah, there you are.
Bosh, mate, I've absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it's been proper.
Everyone who's watched, this was, like I say, the first pro boxer. Really, really enjoyed it. It's different. I've enjoyed talking about something different as well, mate. And obviously loving the sport of boxing. Until next time, we will see you all very soon.